Let us discuss how to create APIs so that our React applications can interact with them. So basically we are talking about creating a backend for our React frontend. To create our APIs, we will use this npm package called json-server. So please install json-server package using this command npm install --global json-server. Please do not forget to specify this global flag while running this command. This will be a one-time install because we are installing this package globally, so we do not need to run this command every time that we need to use JSON server. Once this installation completes, we can start JSON server, and there are two options to provide data to JSON server. The first option is we can give it hard-coded data. So for example, if data.json is a file containing JSON data, then we can just specify json-server followed by data.json. And when we run this command, JSON server will make the JSON data that is in this file available via an API. The second option is we can generate data using a script. If generate.js is a script that exports JSON data, then we can run this command json-server space generate.js, and JSON server will make the data that is generated by this script available as an API. So there are two options to provide data to JSON server. The first is we can pass a JSON file to it, and the second is we can pass a script to it. Let us first discuss the hard-coded data option. Let us create a file with JSON data. We'll create a file called books.json, and then we'll run this command json-server followed by books.json. When we run this command, API server will be started on localhost /3000. And the data within books.json will be available as an API. So let's do that. I have already installed the JSON server package by running this command. So please do this as the first step before proceeding further. In my terminal, I'm going to create a directory called server1, and I'm going to cd into that folder, and I will open this folder in VS Code. I have opened this folder in VS Code now. The folder is empty. So let us create a file called books.json. So I'm going to create a file now, books.json, and let's add some JSON data. So I have specified the curly braces, and our first key will be books, and that will be an array. So I'm specifying the square brackets, and this will be an array of objects. So I have specified the curly braces again. Let us specify some keys in this object. Every entry should have ID, so let's specify that first. So ID is 1 followed by title. Let's write title 1 as the value, and let us have a third key called author, and let's specify author 1 as the value. Let's add a comma at the end. Let's add one more entry. I'm going to duplicate this line, and I'm going to change these values to 2, and let me remove this trailing comma over here. And so now we have some JSON data. Make sure to specify keys in JSON data with double quotes. For example, if we replace this with single quotes, we can see an error. Property keys must be double quoted JSON. And also if we omit the single quotes like this, you will see an error saying property keys must be double quoted. So let's add the double quotes back, and you can see that ID also has double quotes, and title has double quotes, and author also has double quotes. So we have specified some valid JSON now, so we can start our JSON server. So let's go to our terminal and let us start JSON server followed by books.json, and I have started that now. You can see these messages over here loading books.json, and then we can see a couple of URLs over here. The first is http localhost /3000/books, and below that we have http localhost /3000. Let us go to http localhost 3000 first. So I'm going to http localhost 3000 now, and you can see that we have a link over here which says /books. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see that this URL localhost /3000/books is giving us some JSON data, which is exactly what we have specified in books.json. This books over here will refer to this books over here, and this array over here is coming from the array over here. Please note that /books is not the only URL that JSON server gives us. Here we have used /books in the URL to get hold of all of the book records. That means all of the elements in this array over here. JSON server also allows us to get hold of individual records like the one I have selected here. And if we wanted to get hold of only this record, then we would have to specify the ID of the record in the URL beside books over here. So let's add 1 to the URL now, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to type 1 now. And as you can see, now we have only one record returned to us, and the ID of the record is 1, which is what we specified here in the URL. So we have seen that /books gives us an array of records, and /books/1 gives us one book record. You might be wondering if these are the only two operations that are possible with the API that we have created using json-server and books.json over here. And to find out what else json-server gives us, let us go to the docs. Here in the docs, it says that get a full fake REST API. The key terms here are full and REST API. So what the docs are saying is json-server gives us a RESTful API from JSON data we provide. Now what is a RESTful API? You can think of a RESTful API as an API that allows us to do CRUD operations. That means create, read, update, and delete operations on a resource using different HTTP verbs and URLs. For example, if we want to retrieve all books, we have to use the get method against the URL /books, which is what we have done here. We have seen that /books gives us all the book records. If we want to retrieve a book with ID 1, we have to use the get method against the URL /books/1, which also we have seen previously. /books/1 gives us the record with ID 1. Similarly, to create a new book, we have to use the post method against /books, and to update a book, we have to use the put or patch methods against /books/1, where 1 is the ID of the book. And to delete a book, say with ID 1, we have to use the delete method against /books/1, where 1 is the ID of the book. We'll discuss all of these operations in detail later, and we'll also do some examples, but we'll do them later. For now, let us continue to discuss the different ways in which we can start JSON server and the different ways in which we can pass JSON data to it. Let's add some more data to our books.json file. Let's say we have data related to reviews also with us. So let us add some reviews data now. So I'm going to type reviews, and that is also going to be an array, and it will be an array of objects as well, and every entry should have ID. So let's write ID first, and I'll specify the value 1, and let's have review as the second key, and let's specify a string value of lorem ipsum, and let us have book ID as the third key. This book ID should refer to one of the IDs within books. So let's specify this 1 over here. So I'm going to type 1. So essentially this review over here is for this book with ID 1 over here. Let's add one more review. I'll duplicate this entry and I'll change this ID to 2. I'll leave the review as lorem ipsum, and let me change book ID to 2. So this review is for this book over here. Let me remove the trailing comma over here. So now we have books as well as reviews. So let's go to our JSON server and see if we can see reviews also. So I'm going to go to localhost :3000 now, and under resources, all I see is /books. I'm not seeing /reviews over here. Let's try /reviews over here and let's see what happens. And you can see that there is no data for /reviews. And that is because when we add new data to the JSON file, like we have done over here, we need to go to our terminal and we need to restart the server. So I have stopped the server by pressing Ctrl+C, and I'm going to start the server again. And this time under resources, we can see that we have two entries, one for books and one for reviews. Let's confirm that by going to the web page. Let me reload localhost :3000 /reviews, and you can see that now we are getting the reviews JSON data. If we want the changes to this JSON file to be automatically picked up by JSON server, we can start JSON server with this flag --watch. If we use this flag --watch, JSON server will watch this file for changes. So any changes we make to it will automatically be picked up by JSON server. And let's also discuss one more flag. Using --port, we can specify that we want JSON server to run on a different port than 3000. By default, JSON server will be started on localhost 3000, but using this --port flag, we can specify that we want to run this JSON server on a different port. This port flag is important for us because this port 3000 is the default port for our React development server as well. So we have to start one of these two servers on a different port. So let us start our JSON server on port 4000 so that 3000 can be used by our React development server. So let us restart JSON server by using these two flags now, --watch and --port. So I'm going to stop the server by pressing Ctrl C, and I'm going to restart the server by typing json-server, and I'm going to specify watch, and the name of the file is books.json, and I'll specify port 4000. And now you can see that JSON server got started on port 4000, and at the bottom it's also saying it's watching the file. So now we should go to localhost :4000 to see our JSON data. So let's do that. I'm going to change 3000 to 4000 now, and I'm going to press enter. You can see the homepage of the JSON server, and we can see the resources as books and reviews. So now JSON server is serving the API using the port 4000. Till now we have been discussing JSON server using hard-coded data. Now let us discuss how to pass generated data to JSON server. We'll create a script called generate.js, and we'll pass that to JSON server. In order to do that, we need to create a Node.js application. So we have to create a new folder, and then from within that folder, we have to type npm init. This will create package.json file and make that folder a Node.js application. If we pass this --yes flag, then the Node.js application will be created with the default settings. Once we create a Node.js application like that, next we have to create a JS file, and we'll call that generate.js, and generate.js should export an object with some data. And after that is done, we can start a JSON server using generate.js. So let's do that. Let me go to the terminal, and I'll stop this server. And in our first step to create a Node.js application, I specified that we should create a folder, and then from within that folder we need to type npm init. I will use this folder server1 that I had created previously, which contains books.json. So I'll run my npm init command in that folder. So I'm going to type npm init followed by --yes. When that command completes, if we go to VS Code, we can see that a new file called package.json has been created. Let's open package.json. Let's keep it open because we are going to add a couple of packages to this project. The next step is to create a JS file called generate.js. So let's do that. So I'm going to add a new file called generate.js, and this file should export an object with some data. To export data in Node.js projects, we have to use module.exports. So let's write module.exports, and let's assign that to a function, and that function should return an object with some data. So let's write a return statement, and let's specify an object as the return value. So I've specified the curly braces. For now, it is empty. Let's quickly talk about module.exports. Node.js projects by default use CommonJS for modules, and in front-end code, we typically use ECMAScript modules. In our React front-end code, we have been using import and export keywords when working with modules, and similarly for Node.js projects, we'll have to use require and module.exports when working with modules. For our example, let us generate some data related to persons. So I'm going to initialize a variable called persons data to an empty array. We are going to fill up this persons data array with some fake data, and when that is done, we'll return this persons data as part of this object over here. So we can write persons as the key, and the value will be persons data. Observe that we haven't used double quotes or single quotes over here. This is a JavaScript object, so our keys like persons over here do not need double quotes. To generate fake data, let us use the package called faker. So let me go to the terminal. So I'm going to type npm install faker. Now faker has been added to our project. Let's check package.json. You can see that faker has been added to the list of dependencies over here. Now let us generate some data using faker. So I'm going to type persons data.push. Push will append new elements to an array, and the element to our array will be an object. So I have specified the curly braces. Let us have two keys in this object. The first key will be ID, and let's specify the value 1, and let's have name as the second key. And for the value of name, let us use faker to generate a fake name. So I'm going to type faker.name.findName. What this will do is faker will randomly generate a name for us. Let's go to the docs and see what else faker can generate for us. This is the GitHub page for faker.js, and you can see that the description is generate massive amounts of fake data in the browser and Node.js. And if we scroll down under API methods, we can see that there is address over here, and under address we have zip code by state, city, city prefix, etc. Let's say we want to use address and we want to use city. The way to write the expression would be, I'm going to add city as the third key, and I'm going to write faker dot address dot, and city will be a method. So I'm going to write city and I'm going to add the brackets because that is a method. And if we scroll down, we can see that there are other sections like commerce, company, database, date, finance, lorem, name, phone, etc. And you can see here that we have already used name and find name method in our code over here. You can go through this list and experiment with all these different methods for generating fake data. So let us continue with our example now. In order to use faker, we need to import it, but instead of writing import statement like this, import faker from faker, instead of doing this, we'll have to write const faker equals require and pass faker like this. Now I'm going to save the file, and we have already written our return statement over here where the key is persons. Now our generate.js script is ready. It is only going to generate one record for now, but let us test it before generating more fake data. So in the terminal, I'm going to type json-server and I'm going to pass generate.js, and I'm going to specify the port as 4000. We can see that json-server loaded generate.js and it has generated a RESTful API for the person resource. So let's go to our browser now. Let's go to localhost 4000 and let us reload the page. And under resources, we can see /persons over here. So let's click on persons and we can see that /persons is returning an array with one record. So let us go to generate.js and let us proceed to add more fake data. Let's add a few more person records. So I'm going to duplicate this line and I'm going to change the IDs of these records. The name and city will be generated by faker, so we don't need to change them. So now our persons data array will have these 5 items. Let's go to the server and restart it. And I have restarted the server now. And let's go to our web page and reload localhost 4000/persons. And we can see that we have 5 records in the output. To generate these 5 records, I have duplicated this statement and changed the IDs of each of these records. But if we need hundreds or thousands of records, it is better to use a for loop. Let's generate 100 records. So I'm going to type I less than or equal to 100, I plus plus. And let us place our push statement within our for loop. And let us assign I to ID over here. So this code now should generate 100 records for us. So let's check that. Let's go to our terminal. Let's stop and restart the server. Let's go to our browser and let's reload the page localhost 4000/persons. And you can see that we have 100 records created. We can very easily change this value from 100 to 1000 to generate 1000 records. And we can easily add more attributes to each of our records by using the API methods of faker.js. So in this way, we can generate a large amount of data for our React applications to test against. So we have discussed 2 options to provide data to JSON server. The first option was to pass hard-coded data. For example, if data.json is a file containing JSON data, then we can pass that to JSON server. And the second option is to generate data for JSON server. If generate.js is a script that exports an object with data, then we can pass that to JSON server. In both cases, JSON server will create a RESTful API from which we can get JSON data or to which we can send JSON data. JSON server will expose a full REST API for us.